Today I'm going to talk you through 5 super saloons that you can buy at every price range. I'm talking 100k, 50k, 25k, 10k and 5k. If you're enjoying this format, do let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. I'm willing to change it if you think I should do different price ranges instead. Willing to add, subtract, whatever you think is necessary. Do hit like if you enjoyed this video, subscribe as well if you're one of these 72% of people who aren't subscribed watching this right now, and let's get straight into it. So for our 100k car in this video, we have the absolute monster that is the BMW M3 CS from the 6th generation M3, or the most recent generation. This car literally only dropped back in 2023 and follows on from a strong history of M3 CSs. The purpose of a CS with the loss of the CSL badge for M3s is effectively to be a limited run, unlimited performance version of the M3 with more power, less weight and more aggression all in. When you look at a CS, you can see the motorsport influences not only in all the carbon, but even the bonnet looks like the cars had the Weissach package attached to it by Porsche. Brand new from BMW in 2023, these would have cost you around £115,000 with no spec options, which is around £117,000 adjusted for inflation a year later. Today, however, you'll find them starting around £92,000 with a 100k limit getting you a 2023 model with around 5,000 miles on the clock. That means these have dropped by £25,000 total, or just over 21%, which actually isn't that bad in a year considering that effectively covers the VAT, which you'd expect to lose driving it off the forecourt. At the same time, however, I'm sure given they are a limited run, some prospective owners might have been hoping to sell for overs, who knows. Regardless, these come with a 3-litre twin turbocharged inline-6 engine that makes 543 brake horsepower, taking this car to 60 in 3.3 seconds, making the quickest car on the list, helped by it having BMW's xDrive all-wheel drive system. It's known to handle beautifully, and what it lacks in the practicality of a standard M3, it gains in poise, feel and control out on track, or more usefully on tight twisty lanes. It's less about being a brash, loud, fast German saloon and more about being a clinical track-focused beast, staying composed at all times. It's obviously somewhat related to the M4 CSL, and most owners and reviewers have noted that the two cars feel quite similar despite the CSL taking it to the next level. Thanks to my lovely friends down at the Motorland car dealership in Beckenham, I had the amazing opportunity to drive the 50k car from this video, an Alfa Romeo Giulia Quadrifoglio, and I don't think I'm exaggerating when I say this car changed my life. I've driven so many fast new cars now, often actually thanks to the Motorland team, and they've all been incredibly capable, cool and all the rest, but they've often lacked what gets me excited about a car: pure, unadulterated rawness. The Giulia Quadrifoglio gave me confidence that even in a world of increasing regulation and technology, you can still build cars that offer real, genuinely fun driving experiences. Much of that fun can be had when you stick this thing in race mode and let that 2.9-litre twin turbocharged V6 block sing, which makes 502 brake horsepower, taking the car to 60 in 3.8 seconds, not far off that BMW at all. Even better, these start at around £26,000 second hand nowadays, and you honestly don't need to spend anywhere near 50k, but if you did, you'd be getting a 2022 model with around 11,000 miles on it. New back in 2016, these would have cost you around £59,000, which is £79,000 adjusted for inflation, meaning in total you would have lost around £53,000 or 67% of its total value. That's just under 7k per year lost, which is around 8%. Not actually that terrible, but you're definitely better off spending somewhere in the 30k region for one of these. And despite the Alfa Romeo badge, these have generally been pretty good on reliability too, outside of some sensor issues and the likes. The engines have been pretty strong, which is great news considering it's a Ferrari derived block, downsized from a Ferrari V8. The interiors on them are pretty standard, though clad with some lovely carbon fibre, and if you're lucky you might even find one with the carbon back sports seats. And though they look stunning outside, they're all about performance, with active aero on the front splitter helping the car to turn well, which it needs because, as I showed in my review, this thing is tail happy and built for people who like to drive a car on the edge. For our 25k car, we have a competitor to the Giulia on its release, the Mercedes C63 AMG Saloon from the W205 or 4th generation C-Class. This arrived in 2015 with a major difference over the previous generation: the loss of the stunning naturally aspirated V8, in favour of adding a couple of turbos. For some this was a huge loss, as yes, that NA V8 did sound utterly absurd, but I can't in good conscience tell you that twin turbo block in these cars sounds bad in any way. It remains one of the best sounding modern V8s in my opinion. Speaking of that engine, it's a 4 4-litre twin turbocharged V8 to be exact, putting out 469 brake horsepower, taking it to 60 in 4 seconds, and of course you could bump the power up and the 0 to 60 down if you went for the S model instead. These start at around the £19,000 mark nowadays, so much cheaper than their Alfa competitor, while our 25k limit will get you a 2016 example with around 60,000 miles on the clock. Back in 2015 these would have run you around £60,000 brand new, which is £81,000 adjusted for inflation, so you'd have lost net £62,000 or 76.5% of the value. That means they've dropped by just under 7k per year like the Alfa, or around 8.5%. It's definitely a good looking car, but they typically come in quite understated specs. You'll find plenty in black, grey or white, as it's got a bit of an executive car reputation. These kind of specs help them to be a little bit more sleeperish, but it also means cooler colours typically come with a slight extra premium. If you wanted a real competitor to the Giulia, you would have to go for the S, and to be honest, though the interior was definitely better looking on release, I would say it now looks worse, as it looks incredibly outdated compared to modern Mercs, which is pretty typical considering how often Mercedes interiors change. They're also known to be pretty reliable mechanically, and that engine block has been used in multiple Mercedes cars ever since. So I hope you guys are enjoying this video. If you are, then do hit the like button and subscribe as well if you're new. And let me know in the comments down below, what is the most iconic super saloon of all time? If you're a fan of the channel, you know I'm a big rallying fan, having recently dropped a video where I finally had the chance to drive my dad's Peugeot 206 World Rally Championship car. It's one of my best videos ever in my opinion, so do check it out after this video. But for our 10k car in this video, we're going to talk about a key competitor to that 206, the Subaru Impreza WRX STI, specifically in this case though in its most recent spec. That means it's the Hawkeye, which was a great looking Impreza, but also the one known to have the worst reliability as a result of problems like ringland failure and head gasket failure. On top of that, these are known for rust as well, like many other Japanese cars of its time. Those engine issues are attributed to the 2.5-litre turbocharged Boxer 4 engine, which makes 276 brake horsepower, taking it to 60 in 5.2 seconds, pretty decent for a car whose official specs are limited by the Japanese Gentleman's Agreement. Now this is of course a slightly older car, with the Hawkeye coming out in around 2006, and it would have cost you around £28,000 back then, which is £47,000 in today's money. Now these start at around our 10k limit, and you can get non-Hawkeye models going up over the 10k mark. That means these have dropped by around £37,000 in total, or almost 79% of their value, which is just over £2,000 a year or 4.37% annually. In the World Rally Championship, these were driven by Petter Solberg, a former World Rally champion in Impreza in 2003, but the Hawkeye did signal the start of the end, sadly, for Subaru's involvement in WRC. It didn't win a single rally in 2006 or 2007, in part because Sebastian Loeb was on smoke, and in part because it wasn't even reliable in a rallying context, giving Solberg a tough time as someone who was used to winning. The road car remains a cool car for the money though, but personally I'd spend a few thousand more and get myself a nice bug-eye example instead, which would likely be more reliable and has more rallying pedigree. And so we've reached our 5k super saloon. Pretty cheap, but there are still quite a few fast saloons available within this price range. The one I wanted to focus on today, if you'll pardon the Ford related pun, is the Ford Mondeo ST220, a proper classic fast Ford now, from the tail end of the golden age of touring car racing, at least in my opinion. In that typical Ford Sonic blue colour, this car is super eye-catching with its more aggressive body kit, inspired by the previous generations of Mondeo touring cars, and an interior that's made to be comfortable for a nice long cruise, and looks lovely, with quite a few spec options for a relatively budget car from the early 2000s. These also benefited from a 3-litre V6 engine making 222 brake horsepower, taking them to 60 in 7.4 seconds. To get into one of these today, you'll only need to part with around £1,500 at the bottom end, and for our 5k limit you'll get yourself a 2006 model with 90,000 miles on it. New back in 2001, these would have run you around £22,000, which is £40,000 adjusted for inflation. That means a total loss of £38,500, which is 96.25% of this car's total value. Pretty insane. That's just over 4% per year, or 1.7k gone annually, which really puts the other cars on this list into perspective. This car probably looks and sounds faster than it really is, with the twin exit exhausts and wide wheel arches, but that doesn't take away from its future classic status. I really think perfect examples of these have great potential, and you can actually get pretty nice examples for not much more than our 5k limit. Suspension on the rear is known to go wrong, and oil leaks are known too. The main bearing did offer some issues at around the 60k mark, and you're better off going for a post 2003 model to get the better 6-speed gearbox. I hope you enjoyed this video. Do hit like and subscribe if you did. Huge thanks to you guys for watching, to the patrons for their support, and I mentioned that video of me driving my dad's Peugeot 206 WRC. Click on screen to go check it out.